and this is Richard. In this video, we're going to be using CSV files as spreadsheets. So we're going to try to use a CSV file and use it, manipulate the numbers, use the numbers as if it was on a spreadsheet. This was requested by Davis Rogers, and I am going to be using a file, and the link is in the description, a video from sentdex, who does this in Python. So I'm going to try to do this similarly. It's going to be quite a bit different, but similar to this in Dart. Okay, so if you want to use it, look at his original video and see what he was actually doing, that'll just give you an idea of what we're doing, and then you can always come back to this video and see how we do it in Dart. Okay, so, but I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Now, what, first of all, is a spreadsheet? Well, a spreadsheet I typically think about is either Excel, Microsoft Excel, or LibreOffice Calc. So basically what it is getting data in a grid type of form. So we have columns right here that go up and down, and then we have rows that go side to side, right? And we put information inside of here. And how we organize the information depends upon, well, first of all, how we want to, but how it looks on a spreadsheet. For example, like if I put name as a label here, or this is sometimes called a header, like date of birth and, I don't know, gender, I guess, or something like that. Let's make it sex. So we can do something like that. So it would be, name would be something like John, and date of birth is, let's just say ID. Less typing for me. Okay, ID is 11, sex is male, and then there is a Mary, and ID is 3, and sex is female, and so forth. Okay, so you can say, okay, for the list of people I have, and it can always go down as many people as you want, you can look them up by their name, look them up by their ID number, or look them up by sex. So you could say, how many males do we have in this group? And we can look them up. How many females do we have? And these values are not really linked together, but we think of it that way. So if you're more advanced in Excel, these values are not linked, but for our practical purposes, whenever you look at this side, it refers to this. When it refers to this, it refers to this. Okay, so 11 does not refer to Mary. 11 refers only to John. And these are the characteristics of John. These are the characteristics of Mary. So these are the different individuals, and these are the names. Here are the IDs in this column. And this column would be the sex, okay? And we could keep going on and on and on, but that's how we organize data, okay? We can also do this. So not only can we do this, but we can also do a number of things with this. So we could count how many males we have, like I said in there. We could count how many Johns there are in the entire group. We could count how many groups there are. So by organizing the data, it makes it a whole lot easier to manipulate or use or study the data also, okay? So we're going to be doing a little bit of that. Only we're not going to be using a calc or an Excel spreadsheet. Why not? Well, how these are saved as something, so for LibreOffice, it's saved as a ODS, open document spreadsheet. Excel files, I think it's .xls or something like that. These are rather complicated programs. Excel is proprietary, meaning that only Microsoft knows exactly how it looks. ODS is not, but at the same time, to get an ODS file, put it through a converter and bring that data into a program here is not easy. I tried to look for some libraries that do it, and there are some, but they're not very simple and straightforward. So if there's a great demand, I'll look into that, but there was one that required both the client and the server. So again, leave a comment in the comment section if you're really, really, really interested in doing that. But I really hope you're really, really, really interested, because that seems a little bit complicated, okay? Anyway, what is a CSV? So CSV, it stands for comma separated value. Now, before we go any further, we have to understand something called a delimiter. What's a delimiter? Okay, a delimiter basically is a way of determining what separates pieces of data apart. Okay? Something that separates data apart. Okay, I'm going to be very vague about that. For example, the car is black. Okay? If I look at this and I say the car is black, how do I know it's the car and not the car? So maybe the car is a name of a car, okay? Or it's a name of a dog, okay? The dog is black, the dog, the car. I'm not saying it's a good name, I'm just saying that's the name, is black, right? No. If you put a space inside of there itself, you know that that's one word, that's a second word. If you don't put a space inside there, you would think, oh, wait a minute, that's one word, right? So that space is what we call a delimiter, right? It separates this data from this data from this data. And so in languages, at least English and many languages, the delimiter is a space. Now, how do you separate sentences, right? So there's a sentence, and that's a value. So sentences, the delimiter is a space, a period, followed by two spaces. Every time you see a period followed by two spaces, you know that's a new sentence, right? As opposed that if you had a dot, a period, and then a period, and then a period, that's a different value, so that's not a new sentence, right? And so when we think about a delimiter, it could be, I'll take all sorts of values. And I'm sorry I'm spending a little bit extra time with this, but it can sometimes throw us off. So what if you have a bunch of quotations in line? So, hello, buy something. So we have this. So what is the delimiter here? It's not the comma, it's the quotation, space, quotation. That's the delimiter because the data is inside of here. And you got to get rid of that first initial one and the last one. But the delimiter would be these values there too, right? So it would be the quotation space, comma, space, and quotation. So what a comma separated value, what do you think the delimiter is? It's going to be a comma, right? And how it generally looks like it's John, it's separated by commas. John, 33, male. And so you would have a text form with a name, with something, a value, comma, space, something, comma, space, and then followed by, and then new line. And so you would have the data that goes across and the data that goes down. And it would probably take the same form, or at least it should. So all of the ones in the first section right here would be the first name. The ID would be in the second space, followed by the first comma. Second comma, it would be the sex right there. Okay? So let's keep that in mind. Now let's give you an example here. Now let's make a CSV form itself. It's pretty simple and straightforward. First of all, let's go to the pubspec.yaml. Let's add Faker, CSV, and CSV sheet. Any versions, doesn't really make a difference. Main.dart, let's import these. Now, Faker that's a really neat library. It's neat because it's pretty straightforward, but at the same time, it creates fake data. Instead of me sitting here trying to come up with all these names and stuff like that, somebody already did that and made a library of that. And that, I think, is ultra awesome. Saves me a lot of time, by the way. Thank you very much. So, in main, let's get a file, get a new file, mycsvfile.csv. Okay, so the .csv means it's a comma separated value sheet. Okay, I've got a bunch of junk going on inside here. Don't worry about that. So right here, hang on a second. So ahead of time, I created some functions to actually create some of these files. If you don't actually have this file here, which we don't, we have this instead. I'll delete this. If we don't, the system will create it itself. So I'm going to create a function right here, create CSV. I'm going to introduce my file from up above, okay? And I'm going to say list first names equals faker.firstnames, and then last names faker.lastnames. So it's going to give me a list of first names and last names and a list of job titles or something like that. I'm going to say int because I'm not sure if all of these lists have the same length. So I'm going to say first names.length. If it's less than last names, then the length equals the shorter one, okay? So the length is going to be the shorter of the two because I just want the shortest list possible. And then I'm going to say job.length is less than length. So in other words, which is the shortest? Is it going to be first names, last names, or job? Whatever's the shortest list, just go with that. I don't want to fill in extra data for the extra first names or anything like that. I'm just trying to create a simple CSV file. Once I get all this information, okay, the length equals the shortest list here. I'm not sure which one it is. I don't really care. I just want to get the shortest list and build the CSV file from there. Okay, so I'm going to create a loop, and I'm going to have it less than length. So it's going to go my CSV file, the file that's going to be created, dot write a string sync. So it's going to do it synchronously. And it's going to say first names, it's going to start with the 0, 1 on the list and create a list. And it's going to loop through the entire ones with the first name, last name, the job. And at the end, so I'm going to create a CSV file with the first name, comma, last name, comma, and the job. And then /r/n means go to a new line. Mode append. So if there's mode write. So if I did mode write, it would overwrite itself constantly. So I don't want to overwrite the file. I just want to add every time I go through the loop. Okay. By the way, this /r/n just means the start a new line. It works if you do just /r or just, remember it's a \n. But you got to keep this in mind. Whenever you create, so let's just create this file first of all. Hit F5. That didn't actually work. I actually have to run the program. So it was called create CSV and then my CSV file. Okay, let's just create it. Let's run it. And where'd it go? There it is. So it created, this is a CSV file. First name, last name, job title. And the list goes all the way down. So apparently there's 25 names in the list itself. Okay? So we have a good CSV file. Remember, one more time. Data, comma, space, data, comma, space, data. Many times you don't have to worry about the space. The system automatically sees that, so it'll automatically not even worry about that. So all you have to say is the delimiter is going to be the comma. All right? Now, this, by the way, does have some metadata in it. So if we remember from before, metadata is data about data. This is not just a dummy file that just has this information. What I've noticed is that if you create this file with the /r/n, when you retrieve the information back, if you just use the /r, you have to use just the /r or it goes crazy. Or just the /n, so if you use both /r/n to get this information back, you need to actually use the same thing that you used to create the CSV file. I'm not sure I understand that. I haven't looked into it too much, but just use both /r/n. That seems to be the standard in what people do. Okay? Now that I've created, what do I actually do about it? Well, what I can actually do is actually get this and create a list. So list CSV to list right inside of here. Okay, so I have to introduce my CSV file. Okay, this is using the CSV library right here that we imported from before. And CSV to list, basically, I'm going to get a C value, new CSV.CSV to list converter. So it's basically a tool to convert the CSV file into a list. And I'm going to say /r/n. Remember when we talked about before, right here, when we created this /r/n, it has to be the same exact thing right here. Again, when you did not use it, it just really looks strange. And I think that's where the metadata comes in. There's somewhere in the file, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows this, that in the file there is some metadata, and that metadata remembers, is there a /r, a /n, or is it /r/n? And if you do the wrong thing, then it will not pull up the right information. Here, the CDS to list converter, you can identify specifically a field delimiter. You don't have to, because naturally it's going to be, the default is going to be a comma. I just wanted to bring that up just because it's a possible optional parameter. If you do a comma, there's some other things. There's a text delimiter, text end delimiter. Not exactly sure what that one is. I think that's maybe end quotations or something like that. Should parse numbers. Ooh, that's a good one. Should parse numbers. We'll probably use that in the near future. Let's not talk about that right now. It'll be true. So if it comes out as a number itself, let's just put that as true. If it comes out as a number, then they'll try to parse those numbers into like if it was 1, 2, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll come as a string because it's CV. It's a file. But they'll try to parse the numbers into actual numbers on your list. Okay? And then created, convert, read as string, sync, and then return list created. So basically, by calling this function right here, we created the list CSV right there. Okay? List CSV equals CSV to list. What did I just call that? CSV to list. Yeah. To list. And I'm going to put my file right inside of here. And then I'm going to just say print. Oh, by the way, sentdex uses try a lot. I'm going to skip that part just because that's always a good idea, and I think it's great, but just for simplicity's sake, because I just want to focus on this particular process here, okay? Print CSV, so F5. And so if we take a look at what's actually going on, we can see it is basically a list of lists. So if we're going to be really type this accurately, it would be that's how it would actually look. So this is a list of lists, and in the lists would be strings. Okay, so in other words, right here, I'm going to make this for right now, for other reasons, dynamic. Okay? Because I'm going to add numbers in there in the future. So if we see a list of lists, here's the first list, comma, second list, comma, and so forth. Okay, so a list of lists. In each list, we have the first name, comma, middle last name, comma, job title itself. All right, so that's how we could do it. And this is how we're going to start manipulating and using these values in the future. So if you think about it, let me pull up the list right here. Aaliyah Abbott, supervisor. If you want to look at all the names down inside of here, or you can, the first names, last names, or the job title in and of itself. So if we want to look through all of these things, if we print out zero, the first thing on the list, what we're going to print out is the first on the list. But what if we don't want to do that? What if we want to actually print out all the first names? You see, it's just the opposite as what we would, normally what we do is if we have a list, hang on, like a spreadsheet, we would go the column first, up and down, and then the row across. So the column is 1, across is 6, that would be Abigail, right? Although when we're doing lists, we start by 0, right? So 0, 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, 5 would be Abigail. But in this particular circumstance, because we're doing a list of lists, it would be 5, 0, that would get us Abigail. All right, so in other words, I want to get that value, Abigail, it would be C 5, 0. And that's how you would get Abigail itself. Okay, so you go through the row first, then the column. So if we had 0, 1, 2, it would be manager. At least I hope so. It would be manager. Okay, so that's how you can actually manipulate it. But what if you say, no, that's actually not what I want? I haven't found, there is another way, and I will go through it in another video, but you might have to just say list first names equals, we can always do this. And then I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than csv.length I plus plus. We could always do this. First names dot add csv. So again, it would be the I, and then it would be 0, right? I meaning the row first, 0 meaning the first column. I, and then, so we can always do that. And so we would see print first names. Now you might say, okay, well, this is a list first names right here. Yes, but that's kind of cheating. So that's because I created it. But if I, for example, I had a previously existing CSV file, then this is what I would do here. Okay. So this would be all the names: Aaliyah, Aaron, Abigail, Abby. Is that in the correct order? Aaliyah, Aaron, Abigail, Abby. Yeah, it is actually. So it would be the list, and we can manipulate it that way itself. So if you want to do the column, then the row itself, column, then row, then you'd have to create a whole new CSV file. I don't think we need to do that. We'll just have to remember to do the row first, then the column next. Okay? So that's it for this video. We're going to go over and do a little bit more advanced using the data in a CSV file, and we'll go from there then. Okay? Thanks.